Professor Turley for his 5-minute opening statement.
Thank you, Chairman Bishop, Ranking Member Ivey, members of the subcommittee. It's an honor to be before you today and also to participate with my esteemed co-witnesses. This is obviously a question of tremendous importance to all of us. We all love our country, and I believe we all love free speech. And we have to find a way to talk to each other, to find a way to deal with our rivaling concerns. From my perspective, I've been an advocate for free speech my entire life. Some people have even called me an absolutist of free speech. There was a time when that was a compliment, but I admit that I do resist most efforts to regulate speech. What we have seen thus far, and we've only seen a fraction of the complex of censorship in the US government, is a censorship system of breathtaking size. We've seen only a fraction through the Twitter files, through some hearings, and some litigation. From the free speech community, it's like a game of whack-a-mole. Every time we deal with a disinformation office that raises concerns, we find out that there are 5 others. And one of the things I'm emphasized in my testimony is that I think people of good faith can come together to at least say that we need to know the full scope of the disinformation system we have in the government. We can debate, and I really took to heart the ranking member's comments about finding solutions here. We can look at those solutions, but we also need to look at what's the current effort thus far in terms of speech regulation, censorship, and blacklisting. Many of these grants, many of these programs are straight blacklisting programs. They are to identify people to discourage, in some cases, advertisers from supporting sites. This is money coming from the US government to support these types of efforts, and that's deeply problematic. Many of these efforts are not just to remove people, but to isolate them. The recent disclosures of LinkedIn as engaging in censorship is an example of that. As an academic, I've seen this. It's an honor to appear with one of our esteemed scientific academics who was the subject of censorship. But the idea is to isolate people, to chill their speech, and it's working. It's succeeding. Now, the whole point of much of my testimony is to look at what the legal standards are, how far the government can go without tripping the wire of the First Amendment, but more importantly, to what extent this damages free speech. And the courts have emphasized over and over again that the government cannot enlist agents to do indirectly what they are prohibited from doing directly. I believe that is what we're seeing today. And the collateral harm is considerable. People talk about speech as harmful. So is censorship. When you censor people like my esteemed colleague from Harvard, you are denying a public debate about public health issues. Issues like, did we need to close our schools? We're facing a terrible psychological and educational crisis that is linked to the shutdowns of the pandemic. We're now debating that when we should have been debating this at the time. Those are costs. Those are costs that come from censorship. Now, in my testimony, I explore the cases that admittedly have a difficult time of when the government trips this wire and under the First Amendment. I'd be happy to talk about that today. I obviously am very critical of CISA's idea that it is supposed to be regulating the cognitive infrastructure. That Orwellian notion really sends people like me into a tight fetal position. The fact is we don't need the government looking at our cognitive anything, whether it's the infrastructure or not. Recently, an English court found someone guilty of toxic ideology. That is a sort of cognitive infrastructure problem. And I hope we don't go in that direction. MDM is designed to give the maximal space for censorship. It is something I hope this committee will turn its back on. Many of us welcome a debate that will come when we know the full extent of these efforts, but let it be an open and honest debate. Let's understand what has been done, and then we can debate as citizens that love this country the type of solutions the ranking member spoke of.
Thank you, Professor Turley. Members will be recognized by order of seniority for their 5 minutes of questioning.